Welcome everyone. Today we'll be discussing the functional level strategies of a corporate body. Yes. So the agenda is basically to understand what are the various functional strategies that can be used to achieve the organizational goals, probably the objectives. Understand what activities and functions are appropriate to outsource in order to gain or strengthen the competitive advantages thereby. Recognize the strategies to avoid, understand why are they dangerous, certain strategies might backfire at times, construct a corporate scenarios to evaluate strategic options, develop policies to implement corporate business and functional strategies thereby. This is what we are looking forward to. So yes, functional strategies. The approach of a functional strategies areas is to take achieve corporate and business units objective and strategies by maximizing the resources productivity. Now this is what we are looking into it. Why do we have a functional strategy? So that we have a minimum input and maximum output. That is what will increase the efficiency of the organization. So that's the approach, essential approach for any corporate or a business unit. Minimum input and the maximum output. So marketing strategies deal with pricing, definitely yes, selling and distribution of a product. So we cannot have a product which can be overpriced vis-a-vis the quality. We cannot have a product which is overpriced vis-a-vis the amount, the quantity as whatever you look to go around it. We need to have an appropriate pricing. We need to keep the profile of the audience in mind, the customers in mind, selling, the competitors are in mind, and then probably availability of the product thereby. So marketing strategies would be having a company business unit, number one, would to have to capture a larger share of the market, definitely yes, or utilizing the current product through market penetration or saturations. Or point number two is to develop a new uses for the market, for the current market, or develop a new market altogether for the current products. Depends upon the situation how we go about with the marketing strategy. Remember, we are only discussing functional level strategies hereby. Yes, marketing strategies are the product development strategies. Why? Because essentially, whenever we produce a new product or new services, there are ready-made customers available because people have not experienced the products, right? We just have to sensitize the audience or the customers at the end market in the existing market, and people might lap it up, or probably develop a product or develop a market altogether for a new market. Now we have the product we have existing. It is tried, tested, verified, and probably had vouched for it. Now we need to expand the product geographical situation into a new market and probably launch it then and there. So that is what product development strategies would always be. Talking about the marketing strategies of the brand extension using a successful brand names to market other products, the push strategy, the trade promotions to gain, hold, shelf space in the retail outlet as the case might be. This is what we are looking forward to it. The pull strategy is advertising to pull the products through the distribution channels time and again as on when on basis to pull advertise the products through the distribution channels thereby again this is what we are looking forward to it. Then comes the market strategies as the skim pricing offers the productivity to skim the cream. Now, what is this skim the cream is we have this marketing strategies wherein from the top end at the very launch of the product we put it at a premium pricing, and since people have created or generated an interest altogether, people are willing to pay that high prices when the product is new, novel, and the competitors are few. By the time competitor starts mimicking the product or faking that product altogether, you might have taken the skim pricing, and then you can continuously lower your product. And mind you, you could have sold the product at the lower levels too. But since there was no alternatives, there was no competition, you actually make a moolah around it and probably make huge money profited from it as a skim pricing thing. Then there is something called penetration pricing. Now, this is to hasten the market development. Now, to hasten the market development in the sense the product is ready, the price might not be very customer friendly, but then you are good to go as far as the customer preferences and tastes are concerned. So you give it at a deep discount. Let the customer have a feel of it, use the product, get accustomed to the product before you jack up the prices. So initially to gain an experience, to gain a market share with the low prices, and then probably to dominate the market as and when the people get accustomed to your product. And that is what the penetration pricing is all about, the introductory pricing that we keep on saying. Let us discuss the financial strategy. The financial strategy examine the financial implication of the corporate or the business level strategic options, identify the best financial course of action as the case might be. The management of dividends, the stock prices is an important part of a corporate financial decision. Now, should we give the dividend or should we reinvest the extra profit that we have generated into the business altogether to plow in more profit? But this is what you need to go around it. Remember, an interest for your company should always be there in the share market. Otherwise, things are not going to be going around. The share people, the share market will always entice the end customer, the retail customers from getting on, lapping it up, and probably take much interest not only in your share prices but also in the product and the reputation of the company thereby. So financial strategies has to be perfect. It has to be a leverage buyout in case the company is acquiring a transaction financed largely by debt, usually obtained from a third party. Reverse stock splits is the investors' shares are split in half for the same total number of money, amount of money, as the case might be. How do you go about it? This is what we are looking forward. Yes, this is the reverse stock split is going around. The investor shares are split into half for the same total amount of money that comes around here. Research and development strategies deals with the product, process, innovations, and improvement. Also deals with the appropriate mix of different types of R&D. The questions of how new technologies should be accessed every now and then as with the passage of time is concerned. So you need to deal with an appropriate mix of different types R&D questions, how new technology should be accessed as on when on basis, as the case might be. So research and development strategy, the technological leaders as in pioneer of the innovations, there are many companies who are absolutely have a very vibrant R&D team. They come up with an innovative product and the mere fact that once they launch the product, the skim pricing that comes around it, a host of pharmaceutical company, a host of technological company, a host of artificial intelligence, machine learning companies are a vibrant example for technological leaders or technological innovators. Then we have the imitators around it. Yes, definitely, if you are successful, there are many imitators of people who like to copy your product. So they are just simply technological followers. And then there is something called open source innovation, wherein the firm utilizes the alliances connection with the corporate, government, academics, labs, and consumer to develop new products, newer products, nine time and again, as the case might be. Let us understand the operation strategy this time. Determine how and where a product or service is to be manufactured, the levels of the products, the integrations in the product, the deployment of the physical resources, relationships with the suppliers as the case might be. This is what we are looking forward to. So remember, operation strategies will be all about manufacturing or buying in, having us own setup or getting the things done from your vendors or suppliers or probably from another organization. It can be into a vertical integration, it can be into the production process, anything and everything. Let us understand the purchasing strategies, deals with obtaining of raw material. Now, this is all about inventory, right? Should we block the capital and block the inventory, block the capital for the inventory, or should we block the inventory and reduce your capital? What the case might be. So the part the supplier needs to perform. This multiple sole parallel sourcing that comes around it. Do we have multiple vendors going around for it, or a single vendor would be sufficient enough? How do we go for parallel sourcing? Do we purchase at a low price and have a bulk inventory, or should we purchase as on when on required as the case might be? So multiple sourcing is the purchasing of company orders in a particular part for a several vendors for the same product. Let's say product is alpha and we are getting it from vendor X, vendor Y, vendor Z. X, Y, Z are actually giving me the alpha product. So multiple sourcing are going around it. I could have done it from any one of them, all the three vendors, any one of them, and they are capable enough to supply me the requisite quantity also. But still, I prefer having an alternative sources. So sole sourcing is relies on one supplier. When I say no, I will not like to deal with it because it is leading to a lot of hassles, lot of communication and lot of miscommunication, things like that. Let me make the process very simple. With only one product, the product alpha, I will get it from X. The vendor X will supply me all the requisite things. So I will have only one invoices in a month or a week or a day basis, whatever the things are. The credit periods are very well clarified. Things are very streamlined, and probably that is the sourcing advantages is all about it. Then comes a parallel sourcing. Now, wherein there is a backup for each of the suppliers. Two suppliers are the sole supplier of the two different products, but they are also a backup supplier for each other's product, as it when on basis. Let's say the product alpha has been now supplied by vendor X and vendor Y. So they are the sole supplier as on when on basis. But it has been understood in case one of the vendors fail, the other vendor will be actually pitching in for the supply material is all this is parallel sourcing as the case might be. Similarly, you've understood the purchasing strategies as for multiple sourcing, sole sourcing, and parallel sourcing. Let us visit the logistic strategy. The logistic strategy deals with the flow of your finished product, of your raw materials in the manufacturing process. So it's both the raw materials coming into the process and the finished product going out of the process. So trend includes centralization, outsourcing, and internet. How do we go around it? What are the major sources? Are to be produced everywhere at one location, or there may be multiple vendors who might be actually been sourcing it out and dealing it with us, or doing it an online strategy. Then comes an HRM strategy, addresses the issues on whether a company or a business unit should hire a large number of low skill employees who receive a low pay, or perform repetitive jobs, or will likely mostly quit after a short period of time. Let's say a fast food restaurant strategy, as the case might be, or hire skilled employees who receive relatively high pay and are cross-trained to participate in self-managing work team. Now, everything has its own pros and cons. A skilled employee who is being paying relatively high will think twice, thrice, probably will not like to leave the job, right? Whereas on a low pay, non-technical person would be paid low. Probably the job hours will be repetitive, probably regular, but might not continue with the job for a longer period of time. So what do you want? As this is as a HRM strategy that comes around it. Let us come to the information technology. It's basically follow the sun management. Project team living in one country can pass on their work to the members of another country, in which workday is just beginning, as the case might be. So it's one of those limelights of the stories wherein the work starts from Japan, and the work has been done completed before it has been pushed to India. And from by the time it has been pushed to India, it has been pushed to Turkey, for example, and from Turkey it might be pushed to England, and before that it might come actually down the way to America, and before it comes back. So basically, work is continuously been done. Products have been coded. Things have been done every now and then. Probably follow the sun strategy, as the case might be. So irrespective of what the client is looking into it, the work has been continuously done, and nobody else is doing the as a company. Everybody is doing the fragmented work as on when on basis. So outsourcing, purchasing from someone else, probably a product or a service that has been previously provided internally. The reverse of vertical integration is what we are looking at outsourcing. So I have a job, probably as a company I have job, I can give the job to somebody else, part of the job to somebody else to finish it up. When this part of the job is not given outside the country, it is known as an offshoring, the outsourcing of an activity or function of a wholly owned company to an independent provider in a different country. So outsourcing, I give it to somebody else as a vendor, but if the vendor is located elsewhere beyond the boundaries, physical boundaries of the country, it is known as offshoring. So disadvantages of outsourcing is customer complaints. Definitely, yes, things are cannot be relied upon it. Locked in for a long-term contract. Definitely, we are looking for a long-term contracts with the company. Lack of ability to learn new skills, develop new core competencies, lack of cost saving, poor product qualities, as the case might be. This is what is the disadvantages of outsourcing, as the case might be. So errors in outsourcing to avoid is to outsource the wrong activities, select the wrong vendor, writing in poor contracts, overlooking at personal issues, lack of control, overlooking hidden cost, lack of an exit strategy, as the case might be, as we are looking for it. Now, these are the errors that should be avoided in a longer run. The proposed outsourcing matrices. What are the proposed outsourcing matrices? If you look into it, the total value of the firms might be low and on the higher, whereas the potential for the competitive advantages would be again be on a protein on a y-axis on a low and higher. When things are both low, remember value added firm is low and competitive advantage is also low, blindly outsource it. Absolutely. You completely, it's a buy on open market because there are no added values and competitive advantage is nil, almost nil. But when the competitive advantage is very high and the added value is very low, probably part source it, part manufacture it, taper vertical integration, produce something internally. But what happens when um, the competitive advantage is absolutely low, but again the value added is very high probably. So in this case, like to freeze on the products, have a long term contract with an outsourcing. It's not for one month, 1 year. It is anything from 5 years to 10 years period of time that you will have a frozen contract that you cannot work for anybody else. And what happens when both value added is very high and value competitive advantage is very high? Do not, never outsource it. It's a full produce it internally as the case might be. So yes, strategies to avoid is follow the leaders, hit another run, home run this time, arm race, do everything losing hand as the case might be. Strategies to avoid. Remember, this is what we are looking forward to. Strategies choices is selecting the best strategies, is pro forma, estimated future, balance sheet, income statement, forecast the effect of each alternative strategies and the program thereby which are likely to have an divisions and the corporate return on investment as the case might be that we are looking forward to. We should always have such incentives there. So corporate scenarios, think use industry scenarios to develop assumption about the lack of environment, develop common size financial statement to a prior years, construct detailed pro forma financial statement of each of the strategic alternatives that is there, that is meant to be there, that is incorporated in there. Let us have something for use to generating financial statement as on when on basis. Now what are the historical trends? If you look at it, is optimizing, optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely scenario, and you can give it on a period of year that comes around it. So we have the factors called GDP. What was the last year? What was the historical average? Is trend going up, going down? CPI, cost of goods and services in terms of dollars, advertising, market, interest rate, dividend, net profit, EPS, return on investment, return on equity, other things that comes into play. So it tells you about generating of a financial statement. Pro forma of a statement that gives you an inkling is where the health of the organization is going around it. This is what the financial risk is all about it. Financial functions is all about it. We come into the management risk towards the attitude towards the risk, composed not only for the probability that the strategy will be effective, but also for the amount of asset the corporation must allocate to that strategy, the length of time the asset will be available for other users as the case might be. This is what we are looking forward to. So managers' attitudes toward the risk is real-time options approach when the future is evidently uncertain. Probably it doesn't make sense altogether. It pays to have a broad range of options open. Absolutely, yes. And when the future is very much uncertain, you should always keep not only conservative approach, but also keep a number of host of approaches, options to be opened up to. Net present value is calculate the value of project by predicting its payout, adjusting them for a risk, and subtracting the amount invested thereby. Then comes the stakeholder priority matrix. This is what we are talking in terms of relative power of stakeholders, as in low and high comes around it, and the stakeholders' interest in corporate activities. The low and the higher part is the green piece, the federal government, the customer, the local communities, the shareholders, and the creditors we are talking about. If you look the part of the relative power of the shareholders, the creditors has the maximum because they fund it out, whereas the green piece or the non-government paying thing, they don't have any powers around it. So we have the stakeholders interest. Creditors is the maximum because they have the power. The federal government too has a power, but probably the corporate interest is not very high, and so on. So in between is customers and shareholders. So let us understand what the question needs to be asked for the stakeholder concern. as how will this decision affect each one of the stakeholders, how much of what stakeholders want they are likely to get under the alternative, what are the stakeholders likely to do if they do not get so, what is the probability that they will do it in most likely scenario, how do you assess them as the case might be. Pressures from stakeholders are very many, as plentiful as anybody can think about it. Plan to bring the stakeholders into agreement with corporate action, constituency building, political actions, committee contributions, advocacy, advertising, lobbying, coalition building, and so on and so forth. This is what I see the pressures from stakeholders is all about it. Now let us talk about the corporate cultures. Now there are certain corporate cultures within the functional abilities also. What makes them click and how do you go around it? Take a chance. If there's a little fit, management must decide what to do. Can you ignore the culture? Probably. Can you not? Probably. Managing around the cultures and change the implementation plan. This is vital. Change plan is what is vital. So try to change the cultures to fit the strategy and probably change the strategy to fit the culture as the case might be all about it. If you have the culture of vibrancy, can you continue with it? Have you have the concern of procrastinations? How do you handle with it? How do you look into the plans accordingly? So if things are not going good, reduce the incentives altogether, make it cumulative or make the job, make the increment everything non-existential as long as the people are not performing. Make everything performance related. So process of strategic choice is the evaluation of alternative strategies as per the selection of the best alternative. Failure most always likely to be stem from the action of decision, not from bad luck or situation limitation as the case might be. Yes, I will give you a devil's advocate as far as consensus trap is concerned. Identify potential pitfalls. Probably identify the problems with the proposed alternative. Every time that has been indicated, what might go wrong. It might be an individual, it might be a group, there might be people with vested interest. Have a dialectical inquiry requires two proposals using different assumptions, different things to be generated for each strategies under consideration, and that is what we look into it. So process of strategic choice, criteria for evaluating alternatives, including mutual exclusivity, success and completeness. This is what is the internal consistency is all about it. We are looking at mutual exclusivity, success, completeness, internal consistency that needs to be every now and then. Developing policies when crafted correctly. An effective policy accomplishes three things. It forces trade-off between competing resource demand. It tests the strategic soundness of a particular, remember this is a particular action that we look into it. That is how we are going to develop it. It sets clear boundaries within which an employee must operate while granting them the freedom to experiment with those constraints as on when on basis that comes in your mind. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video.